Amen, amen. Well, good. Well, just a couple more things as we press on. But again, welcome, Pastor Joseph, back. So glad that you had a good trip. We can't wait to hear more of that. So glad you're here. Today is Adrienne Hanrahan. I don't know where she's at. She's on the worship team. Oh, here's Adrienne right here. This is her last Sunday with us before going to Kansas City, where she'll be ministering in a house of prayer in the inner city of Kansas City. And so, so we bless you. We love you. And if you would be interested in kind of following along with her story and getting updates, she has just a kind of a newsletter sign up that's at our back table. You can sign up there and stay connected. And then finally, Kenny mentioned this, but I just want to welcome those of you that are visiting us this morning for the first time, or maybe you're here, friends and family of these babies that were dedicated. We're honored that you are here to worship Jesus with us. And we'd love to just get to know you, to hear your story, to meet you. Maybe you've come 10 times. Maybe you've been coming for 10 years, but you're like, I want to get more connected. We want to get more connected. So we are so honored for listen, all of you woke up this morning and decided what to do with your day. And I love that we are here together to worship Jesus together. We're going to continue, like Kenny said, going through these Jesus conversations, these conversations that Jesus had as he walked on earth and as he interacted with people. And so today we're going to dive into this conversation that took place with Mary and Martha and Jesus. And last week we went in the book of Mark, and I told you, if you were here last week, that Mark, I like to really think of Mark as kind of an action comedy. It moves quickly, and he says lots of funny things, which I feel like led me into I was in stand-up comedy mode last week. I was telling jokes. I'm not saying they're all funny, but I was telling this story and I was just making jokes. Today we're going to be in Luke, and Luke is a doctor. I'm not saying doctors can't be funny. They're just not necessarily known for being funny. If you're a doctor in the house, I apologize. You're probably hilarious. You certainly are at all of your family reunions. Keep telling the jokes. But so we're going to be in Luke here today with this conversation between Jesus and Mary and Martha. And to be honest with you, we're going to really dive into Luke 11. But this is not just one conversation. I think it would be very easy and maybe even right to take this as a three-part conversation in Luke 11 and then John 11 and John 12, where we have these stories specifically of Mary and Martha, these two sisters that we read about here. And it's not a new story. I know many of you know this story, and you can even tell me the main punchline of the story. Punchline, I'm already back into joke mode. But you can say, we know what this is. Mary sat at his feet and Martha worked, and don't be a worker, be a worshiper. Yes, that's where we're going. But here's the thing. We can know these stories, and we can even hear them, but I know for me, I need constant reminders of them. I do not have my doctorate in being a Mary. I need to be reminded again. I need to hear these stories. And one of the things that's I said this again last week, but been impressed upon me, is that these are stories for us that we read of Jesus, but these are memories for him. And so I just invite you again this morning. Let's really talk to a real person. Jesus in John 14 says, I'm sending the advocate, the helper to you, who will teach you about me. So I just invite you this morning, ask the helper, ask the Holy Spirit, what is it that you want me to hear about Jesus today? As we look into these conversations that he had, as we look into the conversations of the one that is the image of the invisible God, as he interacted with people and dialogued with people, what is the Holy Spirit wanting to say to us today? In all of these stories, we see that Mary was found at Jesus' feet. Now, this story specifically even is meaningful to me because 3-ish years ago, October of 2019, I was invited to speak at this thing called Home Downtown for the first time. And I walked through the doors of Boulder Street Church for the first time in a long time. And I was just coming off of, Amy and I had spent a week on vacation together, and I had taken a book. And that book is this book here. It's called Adoration by Martha Kilpatrick. And it's all about these three stories of Mary and Martha, and it had wrecked me. And so that night, home downtown got about 65 minutes of me telling the story of Mary and Martha, which is sweet because I think it was really one of the things the Lord used in bringing the relationship together of where we're at today. And so it was fun. I do recommend this book to you if you would like to dive into these stories, Adoration by Martha Kilpatrick. As we go into this story specifically, I just want to make sure, do we have anybody named Martha in the room? Do we have any Marthas here? Bless the Lord. Okay, great. Because for the next 30-ish minutes, Martha's not going to get a great rap here. And so I just didn't want you to take it personally. If you have a friend or relative named Martha, don't imagine them. That's fine. But here's where I really want to go, though. This book about Mary is written by an author named Martha. Now, I'm sure that there's some story there. I'm sure that didn't just happen. But, even Marthas get Mary. So anyway, Martha Kilpatrick says this about Mary. She sat at his feet for instruction. She fell at his feet in suffering. She anointed his feet for burial. She wiped his feet in gratitude. The complete life encounter of God, here sketched, drawn, and colored on Mary's experience. Mary was always found at Jesus' feet. Mary was always found at Jesus' feet. Mary got something. She understood something that Jesus honored, that Jesus enjoyed, that Jesus commended, that Jesus loved. And we see in the story of her and her sister, this is going to be kind of a character study today. We have two stories going on at one time. And I don't know, one of the things that I really enjoy as a pastor is I get the honor of being a part of significant moments in people's lives. And specifically, one fun ones for me is when I get to be a part of when people get married and they have the celebration and they get we go through the process of planning a wedding and having a wedding. And one of the things I try to remind a bride and groom is to slow down and take in the moment, to be present in the moment, because you have worked for 8 months or 3 weeks, it doesn't matter. You've worked hard to make this moment happen, and this is a big moment, and it's easy to have the stress of the moment and the pressure of the moment. And there are pressures. I mean, there are family dynamics, there are people visiting, you're hosting your own party. I mean, there's lots of stuff going on, and I try to really recommend, hey, slow down, take in the moment, and even the things that aren't perfect about this moment will be special to you if you are present and aware of them. I remember in Amy and I, on our wedding day, we had some of those unplanned moments. Probably about 10 minutes before the ceremony started, we were, I don't know, maybe it was a little further out, but we were moving a piano to get things set across stage, and one of my groomsmen leaned over to help me move this piano, and his pants just ripped seam to seam, and he had on some bright-colored undergarments, and he was like, I don't know what we're going to do. I can't go out there. And I said, yes, you can, and you will. You are standing with me on this day. And it doesn't matter that everyone's going to see what underwear you decided to put on today, because you're going out there with me. And fortunately, my father had some spare pants, and so he got some grandpa pants on and wore those. And then we were in the ceremony, and we had this pretty extravagant ceremony, maybe really more so than necessary, but it was memorable, it was great. And so we had not one, but two sets of dancers, yes, dancers. And during one of the times of dancing, we had two, stages that were next to each other. And this dancer in our wedding was a kind of ballet dance, not like hip-hop dance. That'd be cool too. But she was doing her ballet dance, and she stepped, and the stages separated, and her foot went between it, and she twisted her ankle, and she was a pro. She kept going. She finished out strong, but I'm just standing there, and I'm like, oh, and Amy's not even in here for this moment. And so then what happened is it pushed the stages apart. So then our fathers got up and tried to push the stages together, but they weren't moving, so we had our fathers trying to fix the problem in the middle of it, and I'm like, oh my goodness, just let it go, it's fine. And then we had all my herd of nieces and nephews coming down, not like a flower girl and a ring bearer, but 13 or 12, how many I got? There's so many of them. And they were and my now 20-year-old nephew was 4, but he was the big one pulling the cart with the others, and it wasn't working. And there was a lot of problems that actually kind of made me really present in the moment. It really made the moment where I remember those, and it brought me to it. And one of the things we see with Mary and Martha was that Martha, she was, as we hit this story, Martha was the host. It was her home, and it was therefore her job to take care of the hosting. And so Martha was actually, she's about to get a bad rap, so let me just say a couple nice things about her. Martha was doing the right thing. Martha was doing what she was supposed to be doing. She was hosting the rabbi, and she was making a big deal out of it. She was doing the right thing. And also we see in John where it says that Jesus loved Martha. I love that it specifically says Jesus loved Martha, because Mary's the one that is the hero of the story. And I think even in that, we see where the word really wants us to know, hey, even when we're not the hero of the story, Jesus loves you. Jesus loved Martha. Martha was doing all the right things. But the purpose of hospitality is the presence of the guests. The purpose of hosting and being a good host is the presence of those that are coming over. And Martha, she got all caught up in the story. She got all caught up in what she was supposed to be doing, that she missed the actual purpose of the encounter. And so she was doing some good things, but she missed the one thing that really mattered. It's easy to get distracted and to not be present. And we want to walk with God, and we want to know Jesus, and we've been given this gift of salvation and hope and life and restoration and the meaning of life, and the person that created us we get to know him. And then it's so easy for us to go about life distracted from that relationship. And sometimes in the name of doing good things. Richard Foster, who wrote the book Celebration of Discipline, says this: our adversary majors in three things: noise, hurry, and crowds. If he can keep us engaged in muchness and manyness, he will rest satisfied. Greg Boyd wrote a book called Present Perfect. He's a pastor in Minnesota. He said, remaining awake to God's presence in the present moment is the single most important task of the Christian life. And no spiritual discipline is more foundational or transforming than this one: being aware of God's presence in the present moment. Martha had Jesus in her home, and she was worried and busy with all the other things. This moment specifically is a moment where they were entering into or in the Tabernacle of Feasts, the Feast of Tabernacles. I said it backwards, it's fine. Feast of Tabernacles. I'm not going to pretend like I can get up here and really talk on the details of what that was. But it was a time where they were remembering, as a Jewish people, they would remember going through the wilderness and God making his home among people. And so they would even set up, kind of shelters outside of their house. And that's where they would stay for the week. Ironically, not ironically, are things ironic in the kingdom? But like this week we're in right now we're celebrating that right now. We're not, but some of you are. And so this is, even as we tell this story, this is when that story took place. It was in the autumn, it was in the fall. It would have been in Bethany, just outside of Jerusalem. All of the Jews had to go to Jerusalem. And so Bethany is a suburb of Jerusalem. He's probably hanging out for a little bit. He's in this shelter. Some of you are picturing the episode of The Chosen when they're staying in this. Yes, just keep picturing that. And so Jesus is staying. So even this picture of Martha begins to make more sense, because she's going to the house and back out to the shelter and to the house and back out to the shelter, and she's going back and forth. It's not just like bustling around the house. It's like, it's this big deal. And like, I think if I was sleeping outside for a week, like I would really want my host to be a good host and like really make it as comfortable as possible. And so Martha welcomed him into her house. This is the time where they were remembering him, the God tabernacling with his people. And the picture is that Martha got ready. And Martha was so busy that she was like, oh, I got to get ready. I got to take care of things. And Mary wanted to get Jesus. Martha wanted to get things ready, and Mary wanted to get Jesus. And so even in this, I don't know how you host. I know in our house, Amy and I are different people. And so we respond to different things differently. So Amy, I've told you this before, but Amy likes things. She has I have a higher tolerance for mess than she would. And so my threshold for cleanliness is maybe just a little lower. Like I can hang out in it, okay, fine. Like the laundry's not put away, it's fine. Amy wants things as best as possible. She wants things like clean, she wants them put away, she wants them tidy as much as possible, as often as possible. I don't need that as much. However, when people are coming over, this 7 accesses the strength of a 1. I turn into the cleanest, we got to get this organized. We got people coming over, and everything has to have a place and be in its place. Now is the moment. We're going for this. While Amy, on the other hand, is like, let them see who we really are. Just come on in. This is us. And she has the ability to do that because most of the time she would be clean. Me, on the other hand, I'm like, clean it up now. We got to go. Which I think, I can't prove this. She's never admitted this. I think sometimes she invites people over just to get me to clean the house. I think this is her strategy. She's like, ooh, we're going to have guests because that will activate him wanting to get this place clean. I think this is what Martha was doing. Martha had the rabbi coming, and she was like, it's got to be perfect. Everything's got to be in its place. Everything. The rabbi is coming to my house today, and I want to make sure. She was like, I got to feed him well. I got to take care of him. I have to cater to his humanity. And Mary said, I got God coming to my house. I got to be with him. I got to get near to him. I got to sit with him. I got to be close to him. Martha welcomed Jesus into her home. Mary's home was her heart. And she said, this place is where you can come. And actually, her heart then became his home. This is the idea that he is the guest of honor until he becomes the host. He was the guest of honor, and Mary said, yes, but you take your rightful place. In my heart, you're the reason. This is your home. Mary offered her home to him as she offered her heart to him. Mary sat at the Lord's feet, listening to what he said. Martha was distracted with much serving. Mary listened while Martha got distracted. It's so easy. It's so easy to villainize Martha, because she is not the hero of the story. But this is me. This is most of us. Many of us, most of us are so distracted with much serving. This is what's so hard is she was distracted with good things. She was distracted with serving the Messiah. And I think she had good intentions. I think it was like she wanted to take care of him. The temptation is to serve what our work is. Especially in our culture, I think it's easy to see work, and that is our ultimate identity, and that is what we got to give ourselves to, and that's what we ask people about when we first meet them. Well, what do you do? And that's what we want to know, and so to identify with what we do, when Jesus is just saying, oh, I'm far more concerned about what you'll be than what you'll do. And if you will be with me, we'll take care of what you do. Listen, Mary gets a little bit of a bad rap sometimes, as if she doesn't do anything. No, Mary, we have in these stories, Mary works, Mary serves. Even part of Martha's complaint was that Mary stopped serving to be with Jesus. So Mary's work, Mary's get stuff done, but she was like, oh, but that's not the thing that defines me. I'm not defined by what I do. I'm not defined by my work. I'm defined by sitting at his feet. We've made work our self-worth instead of what is God worth? And what of my time? What am I giving to him? And we ask often, the common question is, what am I called to do? What am I called to do? I love this question. Such a great question. What am I supposed to do with my life? What am I called to do? It's a great question. A better question, what is he worthy of? What is he worth? What matters to him? Mary gets to know Jesus because she sat at his feet and she listened. This is a fun quote. It doesn't really have to do with work, but I enjoy it anyway. It's by the great theologian Jim Carrey. And he said, I think everyone should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of so that they can see that it is not the answer. I think it's easy for us to define ourselves by what we do, and much of what we do is unto success and unto advancement and unto being secure in our finances, and these are all fine things And they're not even bad things. Like, I want to make that really clear. And Jesus makes it clear with Martha, this isn't a bad thing. But ultimately, that can't be what defines us. And it won't bring, like, work is a terrible master. It promises much and delivers little. And the only reward we get is when we tell people we're so busy with work. And they say, wow, you must be so important. And there is your reward. Because years from now, like, my kids will my kids will be the only ones that remember the nights that I sacrificed time with the family for work. Like, no one else will remember that. My kids will. My relationship with the Lord will be reflected on what was I willing to sacrifice. What do I give and what do I take? And I don't, listen, we all got to work. Like, that's real. Please work. But it's what is our master? What is the thing driving us? What is the thing that motivates us? Marthas are defined by their work. Marys are defined by their worship. Because you cannot work for God and worship him at the same time. Martha worked for Jesus to please him, maybe to honor him. But she missed him. He was right there in her house, and she missed him. Okay, let's get into some of this conversation, though. So then Martha comes up to Jesus. So that sets the stage, right? Martha's working, Mary's sitting. That's where we're at. Martha comes up to Jesus, and she looks at him, and she's like, Jesus, Lord, don't you care? My sister has left me alone. What a phrase. God, don't you care? It's got a little twinge of accusation in it. Got a little, don't you care? I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing the thing I'm supposed to do, and my sister has left me alone. It's just a little bit of whining, a little bit of self-pity, a little bit of look at her doing the wrong thing, look at me. I love this idea. It's easy to accuse God of things. We are always exposed by what we accuse him of. Martha was like, Jesus, don't you care? And I don't know Jesus' response. He was very kind to her. But it's almost like, Martha, your question, but you're the one that doesn't care. Like, Mary cares. Martha, you're the one that doesn't care. A couple things we see in this. Number one is that Marthas compare. Martha, this is we talked about last week with the Pharisees. Like, no one comes out of the presence of God pointing fingers at other people. Martha is with Jesus, but she's not really with him. And so because of that, she starts to compare to her sister. And she starts to say, but look at her. She's not doing what she's supposed to be doing. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. What's wrong with her? And she starts to look. When we compare, it is a destroyer of even our internal life. You know, we have the Teddy Roosevelt, comparison is the thief of joy. Whenever we compare, there's two outcomes, pride or insecurity. When we compare to other people, either we're going to look at them and we're going to say, wow, I'm so much better than them, and pride wells up. Or we're going to look at them and they're going to say, oh, they're so much better than me, and insecurity wells up. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be looking at him. Martha's compare. She was like, look at my sister. She's not doing what she's supposed to do. Don't you care? She was lonely, right? She was like, we were doing this together, and then she pieced out. When we try to do work for Jesus, ultimately we do work by ourselves. When we try to work for him, we end up doing it by ourselves. And you can either do things, I love this, you can either do things for Jesus or you can do things with Jesus. You can do it for him or you can do them with him. He invites us into partnership. He invites us into being with him. My yoke is easy. My burden is light. Hey, come on, let me carry the load. You get to come along and be a part. But this is my temptation is, what am I going to do for God? I'm going to do all these things. And we start to kind of grit our teeth and do for God. And he's like, no. I just want you to be with me. I won't go into this one. I wanted to. I just think it's kind of funny that Martha's tattle. Martha's telling on Mary to Jesus. Mary was sitting right there. You would think she could have said, Mary, can you help? Now, the parents in the room know this story. Dad, tell Mariah to stop whatever. Dad, tell Aiden to start whatever. right? We have this little book. One of the great things about being a parent is you read really simple books that bring great revelation, and you're like, wow, like I should apply this to my life. And so we have this book, How to Be Good About Tattling. And so we read about tattling. Tattling is when you report someone else's wrongdoing. And we tattle because we want attention. We tattle to make yourself seem better than others. If they look bad, then I'll look good. We tattle, we tell on others because we're too lazy to solve our own problems. Or we do it to hurt other people's feelings and get them in trouble. I think Martha was 4 for 4. Martha wanted Jesus' attention. Mary was getting his attention. Martha was like, oh, no, Jesus, no, she's not doing the right thing. I'm doing the right thing. I'm working for you, Jesus. Look, I'm doing all the good stuff. Look, give me attention. I'm better than her. This is the cry of every sibling. Too lazy to solve their own problems. She could have Matthew 18 gone and sat and said, Mary, let me confront something. I think you're doing something wrong. They could have had a conversation, dialogue. She didn't. We should ask first. This is good. This is just straight children's books. Ask this. Am I telling on them to hurt or help? And have I done all I can do to solve the problem? I'm just reading this, and I'm thinking in my own personal relationships, how often I want to do these other things. And I don't take personal responsibility of like, have I done everything I can to make this situation right? If I try to bring other people in, when I'm talking to other people, am I doing this because I'm trying to help them, or am I doing this because I'm trying to hurt them? This is a difference between gossip and slander and actually loving someone. Like sometimes we bring people in that can help, but when we're just trying to hurt someone, now we're just in gossip and slander zone, and that ain't really what Jesus wants us to be. So we don't need to talk about tattling on a Sunday morning. Jesus' response. Oh no, she's just, this last phrase where she says, Jesus, tell her to help me. Martha Kilpatrick says this, Jesus is always commandeered to obey those who work for him. But those who sit at his feet, let him be himself. It's this picture that Marthas want to tell Jesus what to do. Martha was telling Jesus, Jesus, you do this. Rabbi, you tell her what to do. When we get in this works mentality, this I got to perform mentality, we start to tell God what he ought to do. Don't you care? Here's what you should do, God. Rather than getting to know him, sit at his feet, and ask him, what do you want to do? What do you want me to do? This is what Mary was doing. Jesus responded to her, Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things. The spirit of Martha, that word there, you are anxious and troubled, is to be pulled apart and drawn away. Pulled apart and drawn in opposite directions. I just even think of like, this is like when we you smoke like a pork shoulder, and then you get your like little claws out, and you just start to tear it apart, and it's like easy or hard, but it's just like pulling us apart. There are things that we have said yes to that are not putting us closer to God, but they're actually pulling us apart and drawing us away from him. This is what Martha was doing. She was so busy, even with maybe good things, even doing the right thing, but she was so busy that she was pulled apart. Or another way you could say that was that her heart was divided. She had division, two visions. She didn't have just one vision. It wasn't just Jesus. She was pulled apart, and in that state, drawn away. And Jesus was saying, Martha, you're pulled apart and you're drawn away. What pulls apart my awareness of Jesus' presence in the room? What is it that draws me away that Jesus is here with us? What pulls me apart, what causes me to have division in my one thing, my devotion to him may be different than yours. What draws me away may be different than yours. Just a couple of things I think, though, that are easy to highlight. The things that cause our hearts to be divided and splintered and pulled apart and drawn away. I think sometimes when we get really busy. This was Martha's story. She got busy doing good things. Good things with the wrong priorities can be bad things. It's like the idea that the right thing at the wrong time is the wrong thing. If we're doing the right thing, but it's not the time when Jesus is there, what Martha should have been doing is saying, I have the Son of God in my house. I got to get next to him. I got to be with him. Instead, she was doing some good things, and it just caused her to be divided. She wanted to be with him. She wanted to please him. She wanted to honor him, but she was working for it, and the way she went about it pulled her away from him. And it's like, no, just go be with him. And she couldn't see it. And a lot of times I'm that way. A lot of times I try to do things, and the things that I fill my life with are actually drawing me away. They're causing me to be distracted. They're not pushing me into him. And I don't even see it because I think, oh, but this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So I think when we get busy, it's like with our responsibilities. Like, listen, you have jobs. You got to do your jobs. You're parents. You got to be parents. We have responsibilities. Jesus didn't condemn Martha for having responsibility. It was the posture of her heart that she put those responsibilities above being with him. It wasn't that she was supposed to not do what she was supposed to do. It was that, no, but the thing that you missed is I'm right here. Be with me. I want to be with you. Philippians 4:6, this is Jesus. When he's talking, well, Philippians 4:6, Paul writes, he says, don't be anxious about anything. Matthew 6:34, don't worry about tomorrow. This is the message. So often we have so many things going on. We're juggling so many things. We're spinning so many plates. And it just causes anxiety and worry to well up within us. And I just imagine, I remember being maybe 10 years old and hearing a preacher preach a sermon where he talked about spinning plates. And as a 10-year-old, I didn't know what spinning plates were. And today, as a 40-year-old, I still don't know what spinning plates are. But it's just this picture of spinning plates. And I just can see him. I knew him pretty well. And he just was going around. Sometimes the Lord just wants to come over and just knock over our plates. Just knock them down because we're spinning all these things. And we just got all these things that we're trying to do. And we're trying to keep it all together. And I'm trying to do the good thing over here. And I'm trying to be good over here. And I'm trying to be good over here. And I got all these things. And it pulls us away from him. And so sometimes he just wants to come in and just tip a plate over. And it's like, oh no, I dropped that one. And he's like, you didn't drop it. And just knock him over. Listen, I'm not trying to say that our responsibilities are bad. But let's not take on extra responsibilities he hasn't asked us to take on. His grace is sufficient. The things he has asked you to do, he has given you the grace to do. Let's not take on extra things he hasn't asked us to do. She was pulled apart. Another thing it's easy to pick on, but is noise. Just noise. Words going on all around us. Things happening over and over and just filling. For me, often it's like my dumb little device. It's so easy to be distracted and drawn away by what's going on. This is like one of my hardest things. When I go to spend time with the Lord, it's amazing how long I cannot make it before just naturally, instinctively, I grab this little 3-inch screen. And I don't even have a purpose. It's just out of habit. And it's like, oh God, no, sorry, that's not for now. And it's like, put it away. And then it's just like you're reading some, all right, get away from me. It's just distracting. It's not bad. It can be, but it's not inherently evil. But is it distracting and pulling me away from the thing that really matters? John Mark Comer says, people are walking away from Jesus because they are far more formed by their devices than in silence. We are being formed. This is my dad would say it this way. He said, everyone is being discipled all the time. We are all being discipled all the time. What are we being discipled by? What is it that is influencing the way we think? What is it that is influencing the way we feel? Is it that we're getting in the Word? Is it that we're dialoguing with Jesus? Is it that we're being with Him? Is He the one forming our worldview? Or are we just kind of scrolling again? Are we hitting the next episode? What is it? And listen, ask Amy. I'm not the anti-technology guy. I'm not the anti-phone guy. But where are those things pulling our focus away? And what can we do to say, Jesus, no, I want you to be my one thing, my focus. That's what Mary did. Jesus' response to her, he said, one thing is needed. Martha, you're so busy with all the plates. You're so busy with all the things. One thing, only one thing is needed. Being with him. Mary had one agenda, to be with Jesus. All of her activity that she did was to be at his feet. And this is in every story. She is constantly found at his feet, listening, praying, being with him. She's not the only one. David, Psalm 27:4, we all know it. David was like, listen, when I read the word, when I read about David, this is a like manly dude. This is like a warrior of warriors. This is a king that is like, he's out there killing lions and tigers and bears and all of it, right? Like this is a guy that takes on giants. This is a guy that Saul has killed his thousands, but David has 10,000s. This is like your manly man. And David is like, oh, I just ache to be with the one I love. The one thing I desire is to be in the presence of God. It's the thing above every other thing. So it's not just a Mary. It's not just like Mary was some like helpless romantic that just spiritualized everything and wanted to be at Jesus' feet. No, she tasted and saw something. And she was like, I want to be with him. Paul said a similar way. Where he says in Philippians 3 that I count everything else as loss compared to the surpassing greatness of being with him, of knowing him, of knowing him. Jesus doesn't say Martha's decisions were bad. He just says that Mary's were better. Mary has chosen the good part. One thing is needed. Friendship with God is a choice. And maybe I would just encourage us with this. Our choices lead us. We make a choice, and then like a magnet, we are drawn into our future. We like to think that we just go about life, and maybe some of you are. Maybe some of you you just feel like, I just float down the river of life, and whatever happens, happens, and we don't know. But guess what? You made a decision to get in that river. Well, maybe you didn't if life is the river, whatever. But the not to make a choice is to make a choice. When we make choices, it pulls us into our future. So if we're sitting there, and I'm sitting there, and it's 11:59, and I'm like, ooh, I should go to bed. But what happens in the next episode? Just 15 minutes. I'll just start it. Not a bad choice until the next morning. That choice pulls me into my next morning. It pulls me into what happens if I made the choice to set the alarm, but then I look at the alarm and I'm like, just 15 minutes. We make choices, and our choices pull us into our future. Mary and Martha both made choices. Martha to work and serve and try to get his attention by what she did. Mary to sit at his feet and listen. To sit at his feet, to be with him, to listen to him. And he said, this is the good choice, and it will not be taken from her. This is the good choice, and it will not be taken from her. Practically, what can we do? The irony is not lost on me to talk about Mary and then go into the practical applications. But let's just talk. Thank you, Kenny. I appreciate that. Let's just talk about what Mary did. Mary sat at his feet. Mary sat at his feet. We have 3 stories where she just hangs out at his feet. Where she comes and she sits at his feet to learn. Her brother dies and she falls at his feet in intercession. He's going to the cross, and she's the only one that has actually listened and knows the story. All the guys that had spent 3 years with him didn't really see what was going on. But this woman that hung out at his feet understood what he was telling them. And so she said, I'm going to anoint you and prepare you for your death and burial. She's always at his feet. The invitation is to sit with him, to get in the word, to spend time with him, to pray, to dialogue, to worship, to take little moments as we walk through this beautiful city we're in, to look at the mountains and let them turn our attention to him. This is an invitation to take moments in your day, to turn them into worship. It's an invitation to maybe not start the show at 11:59 so that you can actually get up on time to be with him. Or if you're the kind of person that's like, I can spend time with him at 11:59, then do that. But it's to sit at his feet, to be with him, to prioritize being with him, and this idea that we have a God, the creator God, the God of the universe, the God who knows all, who has created all, who is all, who wants to be with us, who wants to share and speak, to share his heart, to reveal himself. I don't know what sitting at his feet looks like to you. Maybe you ask him. But what Mary did by sitting at his feet was she prioritized Jesus above everything else. And she was scolded by those who saw her decision in all three stories. But Jesus honored her. Jesus' heart was moved by her. And Jesus said, what she has done will be remembered. She moved Jesus' heart because she sat at his feet. Oswald Chambers, it's impossible to conduct your life as a disciple without definite times of secret prayer. Without definite times of secret prayer, of getting alone with him, of being with him. So for your life, what does that look like? What would that be? But she didn't just sit with him, she listened. She sat at his feet and she listened. We say this all the time, John 10:10, my sheep hear my voice, they follow me, and I know them by name. God wants to talk to you. The greatest asset we have, get in the word, read it, ask him what he's saying. But he wants to speak to you through his spirit, and that we would know moment by moment, he is present in this moment. He is not far off and distant. He is not far away. He didn't just wind it up and let it go. But God is with you. Emmanuel, God with us. He's with us. And if we can be aware of his presence, I was reading even this week where it was talking about that he is no more present in this room today than he is present at the bar down the street. He is always present. What lacks is our awareness of his presence. Are we looking for him? Are we asking him questions? Are we sitting at his feet and listening? I just have this radical idea that he wants to talk to you and lead you through your day. And most days I fail. Most days start with me at some point in the morning saying, Jesus, let's do this day together. And then they end by me at night being like, oh, I blew it today. Let's try again tomorrow. And I think he said, all right, let's try again. I'm always here. I'm with you. I'll speak to you. I'll lead you. I'm with you. This is the invitation that we've been given to be with him. Who needs notes? It's fine. I was like, wow, we got a lot more to say. I'll just end with this. I love that Jesus said, and it will not be taken from her. Mary chose to be with him, to listen to him, and Jesus said, it will not be taken from her. The one thing that cannot be taken from you is whatever you cultivate in the secret place with God. You can work every day, you can work 80 hours a week, and you can make lots of money. And you're not promised to keep it, and even when you die, there's no way you can keep it. We can earn a lot of things. We can do a lot of things. We can experience a lot of things. But when we develop relationship, when we cultivate heart and life in God, when we sit at his feet and we listen to him, that cannot be taken from you. Every new step you take in developing, hearing his voice and knowing him, it cannot be taken from you. It's this relationship that we've been given to be with him, to know him. The contrast of these women shows us two ways to live. We can either work to produce for God, or we can sit at his feet, be with him, know him, follow him, be a part of what he's doing. Just want to invite you to go ahead and stand with me. I'll end with this again. Talking about Mary in these three different stories. I encourage you, maybe Luke 10, John 11 and John 12, if you want to kind of dive into this story of Mary even more. But Mary, seated at his feet, learned mysteries. Bowing at his feet, she saw death destroyed. Anointing his feet, she was given exaltation unequal to any other. God, would we be a people that find ourselves, not just find ourselves, that we make the decisions, the choices that lead to us being at your feet, staying there and listening to you, that you would be the priority of our lives, the one thing, the thing above every other thing. God, would we not be pulled apart and drawn away by many other loves, by many other things, but would you be the one thing, the one that we want, the one that defines our success, the one who gives identity. Let's just take a moment and respond in worship. Let's just ask the Lord. Jesus, what are you highlighting to me today? What is it that you would want to say to me today?